We're back at Prison Professors. My name is Michael Santos. Today I am speaking a video number 2 with KC, a man who served 30 years plus in the state prison systems. And while he was in prison, he earned a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a PhD, and he authored a number of books. But he faced enormous challenges financially when he came home. We've been home about the same time. He's found challenges making money and having some thoughts about what he should be doing to make more money. And my job today is to not only help him understand why did things work out differently for me in terms of, I've made a lot of money since I've come out of prison, been able to earn a living, build businesses, own real estate. And we're going to talk today about what he could be doing differently and what you should be thinking about if you're in prison and working your way through a difficult challenge as well. So KC, welcome back. This is interview number 2. And this time your task, like I have been asking you questions and listening to your story, now is the chance for you to ask questions that you want answers to, and I want to do my best to help. So what are those questions, KC?
Well, first, thank you for having me back again. As I told you before, the struggles that I've had to get there, I'm just curious, maybe I had the wrong thought in my brain on what would happen when I get out, because I see 2 individuals, basically like you said, coming from the same century or 2 centuries or decades or whatever in prison, however you want to say it, it felt like a lifetime. And your direction went one way, my direction went the other way. And one thing you did tell me previously, which I do agree with what you're saying, and you're right, that's a tough choice. Where you're saying, hey, you got to get your face out there, you got to just let the world know, and you just got to work with it. And I told you...
Stop right now. You're getting way too much. This is a big problem that you're having. Okay, I want you to come out and make money. And that, in order for you to do that, you're rambling right now. You got to be very specific. So I want you to ask me a question, and I'm going to give you an answer. Because if you do what you're doing right now, that's going to stop you from closing the deal. And you got to be thinking about closing deals. And I know you're 60, but I'm 58. So you're my age. Okay? And we don't have a long run rate. We have got to be very focused on what we want to do. Boom. Ask your question.
How did you first get started? What happened?
Great question. I started differently from you because I started at the very beginning of my journey in prison. I hated being in prison. And I wanted to make sure that when I came out of prison, I didn't go into another prison, which is a prison of poverty. I wanted to come back to society successfully, and that drove every decision I made while I was in prison. What books I read, how I developed my vocabulary, what skills I developed. If they were not going to relate directly to me earning a living, I wasn't going to have any part of it. That made a big difference. So my preparations for success after release from prison began at the very start of my journey. And that's what influenced me to make more money when I came home. Before I go on, I'm going to ask you, does that make sense as far as being different from you? Were you thinking about making money when you got out of prison the day you went into prison, or did that ever come into your mind?
That's a tough one because I'm not sure if I can answer that question. When I got into prison, I was thinking about how to get out and succeed somehow. So my curiosity is, once again, my question, I'm kind of throwing it back on you, is what is the very first thing you kind of did, and how?
So yeah, that's what I want to say, because some people will say, well, what is the first thing that you did when you got out? What people aren't seeing is that I sowed seeds when I was in to make that possible. So the first thing that I did when I got out, KC, is I drove across the bridge. Well, first of all, before I got out, I sowed a lot of seeds to have massive income opportunities before I got out. What that means is I was 3 or 4 years before I got out, I started writing letters to successful people and saying, I want to have a job when I come out. I want to enter. And I had money already. While I was in prison, just like you, I wrote books and did things and I earned money.
Right.
And so I had, when I walked out of prison, $100,000 in the bank. Because I'd set a goal very early on in my prison sentence that said, I want to have enough money in the bank when I get out that I don't have to work for a year. I can just sit and look. If you don't have that, then you're effectively in a whole new prison because I've got to go get a job. I've got to earn something, right? So that is a big difference that I want to share for people in prison, is that you've got to be thinking about these challenges very early on, which is why your story is so valuable, okay?
Right.
You didn't think about that early on, and you're wondering, well, how did you get out and immediately start making money? Well, because I reached out to business leaders before I got out, I had a lot of opportunities waiting for me when I got out.
Okay.
So
did you have access to those people, like names?
Yes.
Yes.
Because what I did, Casey, is before I got out of prison, I wrote them a letter. And this is basically what the letter said. My name is Michael Santos, and I've been in jail for 23 years or something. I think I'm going to get out in 3 years, and I think I can bring value to your company. Here's why. While I was in prison, I got a bachelor's degree. I got a master's degree. I stayed motivated. I wrote books. I developed skills, and I can bring that to your company and make your company more successful. And if you're not afraid of who I am because I was in prison, then I will work for free for you for 2 weeks. And if you don't find me the hardest working guy there on your crew, I'm going to shake your hand and thank you for the opportunity. But if you do see value in what I can provide, I just like an opportunity to work for you and learn from you. Now, because I did that 3 years before I got out of prison and sent that letter out to 100 people, I had people waiting for me when I got out. And then they wrote back to me. Some of them wrote back to me. And then I nurtured that relationship so that when I got out of prison, my wife was driving me from the prison to the halfway house. And I told her within 5 years, I'll have my first $1 million. And, my wife believed in me and trusted in me that I could do it, but she didn't know how I was going to do it.
Right.
I was going to do the same thing that I did while I was in prison. Use all my critical thinking skills to figure it out. And so the first thing that happened to me that is different from somebody else is, number one, when I got out of prison, I had opportunities that I had already created. Number two, when I went and sat with the guy that I ultimately chose to partner with, he was the CEO of a $1 billion company. And he told me, I want you to work with me side by side. And I told him, I appreciate it, but that's not what I want to do. I want to build a life around my journey, and I want you to help me. And he said, I tried to help you. I just offered you a job, and you're telling me you don't want to work here. And I said, well, it's because I want to change the life for millions of people that are in prison. And I want to help those people come back stronger. And I want you to help me do that. And he said, well, how do you want me to help me to do that? I said, I want you to sell me a house. And he said, because he was a real estate developer and he owned a lot of real estate. And he said, do you have any money? And I said, I do. I have a lot of money. I mean, I had $100,000 in the bank. I said, I have $100,000 in the bank, but I don't want to use my money. And he said, why? I said, because I was in prison for 26 years and I got to build my life and I'm going to need that. And then he's laughed and he said, well, do you have any credit? And I said, I do have credit. I have a 000 credit score. And he laughed. He said, I've never seen a 0 I showed him. I said, you see, I was in prison before the internet started, so I didn't exist. And I just told him at that point, Casey, I said, look, you've been a businessman for a long time, and you plant seeds today for what's going to grow in the years to come. I don't want you to see me for who I am right now. And I was still in the halfway house at that time. I want you to see me for what I'm going to be in 5 years. And I'll work, if you saw how hard I worked in prison, I will work 10 times harder out here in society. And if you could do that, then you'll help me and I'll pay you for the house as soon as I have credit. And he said, okay, I'm going to sell you a house. I can't sell it to you cheap because it'll ruin the comparative values for my other development, but I'm not going to pay a commission. So I'm going to take that I'm going to apply that towards your price. And he said, if you could stay that motivated in prison for 26 years, you should be talking to everybody on my team. And he had like 500 employees. So he said, I'm going to pay you $5,000 to go to every one of these stores, and I want you to tell them your story and how you stayed focused and motivated through 26 years in prison. And I'm going to apply that towards the purchase of your house, and that'll be like your down payment. And then I'll finance you until you can get credit. And when you get credit, you pay me back. And that started a business relationship and a friendship that exists even to this day. And I've done millions of dollars of real estate transactions with him because I told him I need to be able to show this story to people in prison to help them understand why their decisions today have such an influence on what they can become tomorrow. That's my answer to your question of how I got started. It looks like I got lucky right off the bat, but had I not sown those seeds very early, it wouldn't have happened. And that's what you and I are doing right now. I'm giving you an idea to say, hey, you're 60, you can make a choice. How did you earn a living last week?
Me?
Yeah, you.
I fixed stuff.
People
Household
don't know
stuff.
what stuff means. Why don't you tell us what you fixed last week and how much you earned?
Like home repair. For example, one lady needed some small stuff done. She's elderly. She needs some lights changed, some reconnected electrical wires, and her wallpaper's coming off the wall, and she didn't know how to stick it back up. So
Got it. How much did you earn from doing all that work?
From her, probably about $200.
Okay. How many of those jobs did you have last week?
I had 3 of those. They all didn't pay $200. One only paid like $60.
How much did you earn last week? More or less. Did you earn 700? Did you earn 2,000? What did you earn last week, more or less?
600.
600. Is that a typical earning for you week? Is that a typical weekly earning wage for you? $600?
Between say 500 a week, 400, say 400 a week to 600 a week. On a good week, sure, I hit 1,000.
Okay, great. This is good data points. Okay, remember, there's nothing you can't ask me. This has got to be a two-way. There's nothing I can't ask you. So now you've just told me that a bad week is $400, a good week is $1,000. How much does it cost you to earn $400 or $1,000? How do you get the jobs? Do you have to buy advertising, or do you get hired from somebody else? How does that work?
I usually get hired by somebody else.
So somebody else gets the job, and then they send you out, they dispatch you out to do the job, and they pay you a wage. Is that right?
Yeah, that's one way of doing it. Otherwise, a lot of it is just previous customers, word of mouth.
Okay.
They need stuff done, and I come out and work.
And how many hours a week are you working to do that job?
Good question. 40 for sure.
Okay, so it's taking you 40 to 50 hours a week to be able to go out into the marketplace and earn $400 to $1,000 a week, which means you're earning anywhere from $10 an hour to $15, $18 an hour by the time you figure all of these things out. But you are a man of wisdom and skill. You've authored 3 books. You've gone through 31 years in prison. There's a lot more you can do. And our job today is to figure out what that is. How can you go out into the marketplace and earn a living? And that is just such an important question to be asking. How do you bring value? Well, one of the things that you have to do, Casey, first of all, is what is your strength? Tell me, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel your skill is as a writer?
I'll answer that real quick, actually. I'm not a writer. I'm a storyteller. The books that are written, that I wrote, I had editors and I had co-authors, who cleaned up the language.
Okay,
Story.
full stop. That's okay. I don't got to keep going. So you're not confident as a writer. Is that correct?
No.
Okay, that's good. That's honest, right? But what you have to become as a storyteller, that's even more powerful than a writer. Because if you can tell a story that will help somebody see how does he or she transform his or her life, you can influence change at scale. Meaning, I can tell a story once and you could sit here and tell it to me, or you could tell it to 10,000 people, and it can increase the productivity of those 10,000 people. And now you can sell it really cheap. You can sell it for $1. Okay, if all 10,000 people paid you $1, you tell the story in an hour, everybody feels great because they paid $1 and you made $10,000 in an hour. That's what it means to do work at scale.
So how long did it take you to build the infrastructure you have to start to boot this up, I should say?
Well, it started, of course, when I started in prison. Because when I was in prison, I began learning about
No, I'm not. I mean, I understand that part where you started to get your network in prison, but I mean, after that, to reach the audience, I mean, that's a ton of money.
Yes, it is. But let me just tell you, right now, you're communicating to me on some type of technology. You've got some type of technology. You've got a camera set up. You've got your books behind you, okay? You've got an ability to hit record. So you could just as easily say, I am going to work as hard out here as I worked in prison, and say, I'm going to start the KC TikTok channel. I'm going to start the KC YouTube channel. I'm going to start the KC iTunes podcast. It costs you nothing but your time to create that mechanism. But you need to create this thing called a funnel, meaning you got to build an audience by just producing content all of the time, like I am doing right now. You wanted to have a conversation with me. I said, look, we got to record it. Why? Because I don't have time to just have conversations. I've got to have conversations that's going to help teach people at scale. And so I can publish this conversation and show people, if you want to prepare for success after release, you've got to start off by making a decision. What does success look like? If you say success for me is going to be to build this machine, then I have to work at building this machine. And that means, okay, I'm going to make 5 videos a day. I'm going to make 5 podcasts a day. I'm going to do all of this. And I know that when I make those 5, nobody's going to listen, but I'm going to try because now I've got a digital asset. I've created it. You know what a digital asset is. You told me, how do I get the URL? Well, I'm going to send you the URL, but you could make these URLs yourself just like I do every single day. Okay? And it's not going to be easy, just like getting through 30 years in prison is not going to be easy. But if you could figure out what's the messaging and the package that I want to sell, and I think the package has to be you, just like my package very much is me, right? The first thing that comes out of my mouth is I was in prison for 26 years, okay? From me selling that story, it inspires somebody to ask a question, how did you do it? And then I come up with a plan and I show them how I did it. And that is what helps. But that for me, it's 100% commitment in saying, I'm going to do whatever it takes to build financial success. If you're willing to do whatever it takes to build financial success, that might influence how much time you spend learning how to make videos or audio files, because that can sell at scale. And you could do that to universities as well. You could take your books and read your books, okay? And just read your books and then reach out to every criminology professor in the United States and say, here's an audio version of my book and what I learned in prison, and I'm sending it to you. What I would love to do is make me a part of your course, and it costs $10 per download, and it includes me participating in a video lesson with your students. Casey, what I want you to understand is that there are a lot of ways for you to put your intellectual property into a course or into something that will have enormous value. You could, if you took the time to take your book, read your book online into a camera, just like I'm talking to you,
Right.
and give some takeaways from it. So try to make it engaging. Maybe make it recorded in 20-minute segments. Okay?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Save it. Save the 20
Right.
minutes, right? You're reading, which you can do. You're recording. You're teaching, which you can do. And then ask a question at the end, 3 questions. You could even answer the questions. And then you could build a library of all these courses together. So your book might be a total of 30 lessons in 20-minute segments. And you put those all into a digital file. Maybe you put those into like a little thumb drive or something. And you say to universities, this is available for download. I'm selling it for $10 a piece. But remember, if every university professor has, 40 students in his class, and they told all those 40 students, hey, here's part of the curriculum, you got to buy this course, and they download that course, that's 40 people paying you $10. That's $400.
Right.
If you got 100 professors to do that, that's $400 times 100, that's $40,000. That is how you build at scale. You do the work, you give the value, the students get value because they're getting something for $10. Okay, their textbooks are way more than that, and it's more engaging. And they can listen and learn while they're driving down the road because it's on audio. Right. This is what work is about. It's about thinking, how do I take my intellectual property and turn it into an asset, a digital asset that I can sell and receive compensation for and earn a living? Because you've got a skill set that very few people have. The problem is you're out there in the marketplace trying to earn a living doing handyman work, which anybody can do. And you've got something else to offer. And I would encourage you, spend some time on YouTube, watching videos, learn how to do it. And if you do that, you're going to change your life.
Yeah, I like that idea. Actually, I see I had a good thought one day because when I told Mike, if I come down the second time, just being in the classroom, I did tell him, I said, well, I'd like your tech team, get them in there to record it, the whole 9 yards, because they got that at college.
But you've got it too. You're on this call right now. Don't wait for somebody else to change your life. You can do it right now. Tomorrow morning, you can get up early every day for the next 30 days and say, I'm going to make a video. And then you record it. And you're going to get better and better and better. And that's all I do. I never ask anybody to do anything I didn't do. If you look at the Prison Professor's YouTube channel and you go to videos and you go to the oldest video, you will see, hey, I'm Michael Santos. I just got out of prison last week. I'm going to learn how to use YouTube. I don't know how to do it right now, but I'm going to learn because this is a historical record of what I want to do. You can do that same thing. You can start right now. But it doesn't happen by accident, and it just requires work. But Casey,
I was looking at YouTube channels, and to be honest with you, I just couldn't even figure out how to start it up.
Nobody can. You just got to watch videos, plug in there, and write in the YouTube and say, "How do I start a YouTube channel?" And it'll show you. Okay, but you've got to work as hard on success as you worked on hard success while you were in prison. It never stops. But Casey, it's Sunday morning now, and I got a tremendous amount of work to do. So I wanted to record these videos. I'm going to send you copies of these. And my challenge to you is get started. Start watching videos on how to create digital assets. And I hope that you will have a more successful journey going forward, okay?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
All right, young man. I'm going to end the video right now here. At Prison Professors, we believe in people in prison. We want you to learn how to become successful too. I'm here with Casey, a man who served 30 years in prison, and I'm going to continue sharing as much as I can with hopes that he can build the next 10 years much more successfully than his first 10 years after prison. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.